Welcome to Julie Whitney Scott Presents Let's Talk Theater, a Mind for God production sponsored event, heard only on WGRN LP 94.1, the Green Renaissance Station. Let's Talk Theater.
Welcome to Let's Talk Theater. I'm your host, Julie Whitney Scott, and I'm so pleased to bring to you a new theater company that we haven't had on this show. That's Imagine Productions. They have an exciting new production starting this month. With me right now, I have Brandon Boyne, who is the director of Second to Sherlock. And I also have Brian Horne. And they're going to talk to us about this play and give us a little bit of information about this Second to Sherlock, and also talk to us a little bit about them. Welcome, Brandon and Brian, to Let's Talk Theater. First, we're going to start with the director of Second to Sherlock, and that's Mr. Brandon Boyne. Brandon, why don't you tell us a little bit about you before we get in too deep about Second to Sherlock and Imagine Productions?
Sure thing. Yeah, my name is Brandon Boring. I've been working in the community theater scene in Columbus here since 2012. My first show in town was actually with Imagine Productions. I was in their original production of Avenue Q back in 2012. Since then, this is my fourth time directing with the company. I've been on stage 3 or 4 times with the company as well, and worked with some other companies in town as well. I don't have just one home company, but Imagine's been kind of a second home to me. They've welcomed me in. And as this year, I actually joined the board. So now I'm a board member of Imagine as well. So it's been great to find sort of a theater home in town. And we're very excited about all the work we've done in the past, and a new step for us here, producing a world premiere musical here in Columbus from a local author.
Well, that sounds very exciting. Brian Horne, why don't you talk to us and tell us about you? Give us a little bit about who are you?
I'm a musician. I Ohio native, grew up in Reynoldsburg, went to Otterbein, and I've always enjoyed writing and music, and this just seemed like the logical endpoint of all that.
Brandon, tell my audience members about Imagine Productions, and you being a board member, I know they're very excited to have you on board, especially since you're coming on that board with the experience that you've had as an actor and a director for the company. What is Imagine Productions?
Imagine Productions is a community theater organization. We're a nonprofit organization. Our mission statement is to educate and promote personal growth for performers and audiences through extraordinary theatrical experiences. What that means is basically, we're like any other community theater. We're looking to put on shows, but we also, they're very focused on sort of the experience. We like to think of ourselves as a family. I compare it a lot to the old saying of, let's get our friends, we got a bar and let's put on a show. It really feels like that with Imagine. You get a great group of people who are just very enthusiastic, and, we use the resources we have, and somehow we all come together and put on amazing work after amazing work. It's a company that arose sort of out of adversity. Another company years ago was sort of falling apart in the middle of a production and left a cast in the lurch without the rights, without a director, without a company and a home. And they were able to pull it together and save. They did their first production of The Wedding Singer at Wall Street Nightclub. They found a home, and then they worked at Wall Street Nightclub for years, a space that was, not well designed for musical theater, but they found a way and they pulled together, and they had many successful years there. And at this point, we've gone to different homes. Right now, we don't have a home base. We're moving around this year in our season that we're announcing coming up. We're going to be at 3 different venues throughout the season. And so that's sort of the Imagine spirit to me. It's the versatility. It's the desire just to create art with the community wherever we can. And we're very experientially focused. And hopefully all the cast feel that way. I know I have a lot of returning cast members, people who have worked with me before, with me and Imagine. And so that's what I like most about it, is that you do get that feeling of, it's a group of friends, a group of people who just want to get together and have fun and make some theater together.
That is the one thing that I love the most about theater. It's the community, and the family. And we truly are a unique group of people because we all have so many different personalities that come into play, and we all have so many talents and creative juices and flow, so that when we get together, it's very exciting, when we are producing and making art and creating together. So it sounds like Imagine Productions has been very blessed in being able to have a group of people that work with them and are still with them. Brian, talk to us and tell us about you and your experience with Imagine. What are you doing?
Well, my role with this show is I'm the writer of the show. But I have worked with Imagine. I'm not going to try to count how many times, figure it out as I list them. Because I think the first time I worked with them was as an accompanist for Brandon's production of Urinetown. Then that fall, I music directed their production of Young Frankenstein, and I was in their production of Sweeney Todd as Pirelli. I think that's the extent of my involvement, plus a couple cabarets.
Now, Brian, talk to us as the writer about Second to Sherlock. Tell us about this that you wrote. What made you think about doing this, and just how did it come about that you wrote this Second to Sherlock?
I mean, it was just a case of synapses firing because I was fishing around like, okay, it's like I want to write something and write another musical. I have so many projects that I've never finished, and I was like, I want to write something, and I did what every good writer does: look what's in the public domain. And I saw Sherlock Holmes, and then I saw that there was Baker Street. There's already a Sherlock Holmes musical, but then just like two like links connected, and it was like, wait a minute, Sherlock Holmes is the world's greatest detective. That implies the existence of the world's second greatest detective. And it just kind of went from there. And I was a college sophomore at the time when I first had the idea. And like so many of the other ideas, it was put in a trunk for a long while. And then back in 2015, it just came back. I did some more. I was doing some research on Victorian era. I like figured out like the core mystery that would anchor the story, because that's the hardest part about doing like a mystery story is you need a mystery at the center. But I think also what happened in the writing process was also realizing that the mystery matters and yet doesn't. Like it's much more about the characters and the world that they're in, and it's a very much inspired by like Mel Brooks and The Simpsons, I think, are my two biggest comic influences. Like, so there's a lot of very like wacky, zany stuff. And like, it's the reason why I wanted Brandon to direct is because of his production of Urinetown. I'm like, that's exactly the comic sensibility I want with this.
So with Second to Sherlock, we're going to have music.
Yes. Yep.
Did you write the music? Who composed that? So you composed the music and everything?
Yep. Book, music, and lyrics.
All right. That is great. Brandon, director of Second to Sherlock. Talk to us about the process and working with Brian on his work.
I'm very excited because this has been a pretty lengthy process for me. I was actually in the same production of Sweeney Todd with Brian. And at one rehearsal, we were sitting down. He mentioned he was writing, and I asked him what he was up to. And he just told me he's writing a story about this other detective in Victorian England who's sort of competing in the shadow of Sherlock Holmes. And he started bouncing a few ideas off me, and I just, talked some things through with him. And I thought that would be the end of it. But then over the intervening years, he would be like, hey, I'm doing a little table read at my house of the show that I was talking about. And so I got to see snippets as it was coming along. I remember I read for one of the parts, I think of the second table read, where Brian was sitting at the piano singing just a couple of the songs. At that point, not even all the songs were written yet. And then it just kept growing and growing. And then back in 2019, it was 2018 or 2019, we did a reading in Westerville, a staged reading just of the work in progress at that point. The score was complete, the script was complete, and we just wanted to get it on its feet with some actors doing it. So he brought me in at that point to sort of direct that reading. It was very light staging. but just to bring in sort of be an extra set of eyes and lead that reading. And so we had a great group of actors do that. It was really enlightening. We got to see the shape of the show and what we had. So at that point, I gave Brian some additional notes, and he had thoughts. We got some feedback from the audience, and he went away for another couple of years and kept working away. And our hope was always to do a full production. At that point, once he brought that to me, I told him, like, you have something here. You know, I've seen a lot of shows at this point, and I know there's something really here. This is not just a fun project from a local author. I'm like, this is a legitimate musical comedy that I think can stand up well against, you know, anything you'd license from NTI or Rodgers and Hammerstein. You know, this is going to fit just as well with all of our big Broadway shows that we're producing this season. So we just had this goal, and eventually it came to the board of Imagine. It was sort of brought up because they had worked with me before, they had worked with Brian before. They knew we were looking for a home, and we just sort of pitched them on the idea. We met with the board one time at late 2019, just telling them, okay, we think we can do this. We'd love to work with you. Unfortunately, they agreed the idea, and we were very excited. We had scheduled it to open up in the fall of 2020. So as you all know, as all your listeners will know, the things did not go quite as planned. So we had all this excitement, all this momentum that was kind of, you know, the legs taken out from under us. Obviously, much bigger concerns in the world than just our show not going on. So, you know, we are more concerned for the safety and health of everyone. But as soon as we were looking to open up theater again with Imagine, we knew it had to be Second to Sherlock. We had a whole season that got canceled, but we knew this was an exciting project. It's the culmination of years of work from Brian. You know, I've been sort of checking in on it, not nearly as much work as Brian, but I've had sort of my hands on it and helping look after this thing for a few years now as well. And we were both just so focused on getting us to the finish line that now that we're here, you know, we're recording this on the night of our opening. It's almost surreal that all the work's finally come to fruition. We have an amazing group of actors, and seeing this thing that's been on the page, or, you know, little scenes that Brian told me about back in a rehearsal hall in 2015. And now I see a group of actors performing these scenes, and there are, you know, fight scenes and stunt things and just all the comedy. It's surreal seeing the idea of a friend like this and a local author just come to full realization in this way.
That sounds so exciting. It really does. I'm going to have to go. I'm really excited now to see this. Talk about casting. Talk about that. In today's world where we're looking and trying to find people, and COVID is keeping people scared, and you know, and you just never know what you can do, how you rehearse. How do you get diversity? If you get diversity, how do you change roles that are usually for gender specific? And how is that playing in your casting of Second to Sherlock?
Yeah, well, the first hurdle is we knew for the safety of our cast and our production staff, we did set a requirement of everyone being vaccinated in our show, because at that point, you know, we were casting sort of as the Delta variant was first coming out. So, and we knew that going in anyways. We didn't want to have to worry about that. You know, we want the health and safety to be first and foremost in everything we do. So that, I think, just was a challenge in and of itself. It was new for us. You know, we never had to sort of check health records at an audition before, especially for a community theater like this. So that was kind of an odd experience for us. But after we got past that, it was very much the same as always have. It was surprising how normal it felt once we got past the masks of it all. And, you know, that was a change of pace, having people, you know, doing their dance call wearing a mask. And I'm like, oh, I felt bad for them trying to kiss their breasts, and, you know, while they're doing all these dance moves that our wonderful choreographer had put together for them. But yeah, we were just very fortunate. I think at this point, you know, my name and Brian's name, we've done enough shows with enough people that I know some people who've worked with us to sort of spread the word around, saying, you know, this is a show you might want to be involved in. I think it was tricky. I know a lot of people are sort of gun shy about getting back out there yet, and I can't blame anyone who's not ready to be in the theater, going to rehearsals day after day, dancing and singing next to other people, you know, vaccination status or no. So we're grateful for actors who did come out. We have an amazing group. Like the high quality people that we get. I seem very fortunate every time I do one of these shows with Imagine. I get a really great crop of people, and this one is by far no exception. just great talent top to bottom, people who, you know, are leading people all over town, or even in our ensemble. It's amazing the work we have going on from them. Yeah, it's, you know, getting sort of a diverse audition pool is a struggle for anyone in the easiest of times, and these weren't the easiest of times. You know, it's a goal that Imagine's always set. But going in, I'm always very open with casting of things. You know, we have one sort, you know, we have a couple like ensemble roles that I think on paper probably would normally be played by a man, but I know we have at least one that we've changed to a woman in there. We have this wonderful trans woman playing Professor Moriarty from the novels, and she is a tour de force, like showstopper in Act 1. We need to, like, I told Brian we should have an extra intermission just for everyone to catch our breath after her number, because she's such a great performer and she's killing it. And that it was never a problem for me. I wasn't thinking like, oh, is it wrong to you know, I wasn't as rigid in the casting. It was like, I just want the best person for the part. The best person who is willing to do the work and who shows up on the day is really all I care about for casting. And really, I mean, the struggle for every company, I think, is just getting the word out and building networks to make sure people know about opportunities. And I think that will help sort of expand casting pools as well going forward, which is something we need across all Columbus. There's a lot of community theaters where you see the same, you know, 8 people in every show, which is great. A lot of great people in town, and I love people who have home companies, but I really want to share the love around, and anything we can do as a company, you know, with Theater Roundtable, getting the word out together, sharing that, and sort of being aware of the broader list of opportunities that can be available for actors across town.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to mention that Imagine Productions is a member of the Central Ohio Theater Roundtable. And that is one of the things that we are looking at. One of our members had discussed and brought up at our last meeting was, how do we go about finding and getting actors that we need that for diverse roles, so that we can have diversity, so that we can have actual people who are of that race play that race in our productions. So, you know, that's a really good point that you brought up. Brian, as the playwright, how important was it for you that this, number one, that Second to Sherlock finally came together, you know, and you're going to see it? Because like you said earlier, you mentioned, you said, you know, how we have a lot of unfinished project. Oh yeah, I've been writing since I was a kid. I am so amazed that when I just go through, you know, the list of stuff in my file that says to be completed folder of plays or short stories. I think the only thing that I can really start and finish is a poem. You know, I got plenty of those. You know, I can, because when those come to me, they're just zoop, you know, but you're right. You know, it is a challenge for those writers of us who are always writing and always have these characters in our heads and stories and have to get them out. So we start getting them out, and then something else happens and we move on. Talk to us about that. You know, how, you know, exciting is it for you to finally have a Second to Sherlock, and how do you see Brian, as your director, bringing your story to life? Is he doing what you always visioned that you two, as you were talking about? Are you seeing this in the performances? Are we going to see what Brian Horne wanted when he imagined and wrote this play?
You absolutely are, because I mean, like Brandon said, the actors we've got, and it's a amazing cast. And part of what the fun of doing a show, like an original show off the ground like this, excuse me, is that in having these readings is you get people, you know, some people who might be coming like at like a table read, someone comes in completely cold, they haven't looked at the script at all, and then someone reads a line a certain way, and like that. It happened with our Watson at the second reading, whereas Ryan Kopasinski, he said there's one line he said as Watson that like he said it in just a certain way that I was like, that's the character. I couldn't figure it out until that point, but that's the character. And like that, and so that really is what I love about all this, is that it's very collaborative. Like the core of what I imagined is there, but there's also so many changes and like reinterpretations and additions that Brandon and Eric, our music director, and Jenny, our choreographer, have all worked to add in and bring to the show that make it even better than what was in my mind when I sat down however many years ago and been like, what if a second to Sherlock?
You know, I think that sometimes it's really nice to have the director and the playwright being able to work together. You know, a lot of times you have a piece of work and you're not able to, as when you're directing it, to mull over with the writer what you're thinking and what your vision as a director is. Does it line up with what he wrote or what she wrote? Is it lining up with what your vision was? And then, of course, we also know that there are times when you have playwrights that say, hey, do whatever you want. I don't care. I've worked with directed plays like with the playwrights, like I'll try to talk to them and say, hey, I'm thinking, they'll be like, whatever you do. And I'm like, okay, I just can't get anything, you know, as far as, come on now, I'm trying to find out, am I doing it? But they're like, just do whatever, because they freely give it up to the director and say, I wrote it, like you just said, Brian, you heard the actor read something and then it was like, oh, that's it. You know, because we write things, but we don't always, we're still kind of figuring out who is this person and what do they sound like? What do they look like? You know, when they cut, and the director's job, of course, right, Brandon, is to bring that to life, you know, to take those words. And then you have the playwright who collaborates with the director, like you guys, you know. And then, of course, you have the playwright who wants to sit there at every rehearsal and tell you everything to do, and with no collaboration or nothing, okay? And that's really hard on directors, you know, because your creativity is so blocked because you got this guy on your back that's not collaborating with you, but he's telling you what he wants, but he's not the director. So talk to us about, you know, the value of you two, and I don't care which one of you start, the value of you two from, it sounds like when this baby was in your brain, Brian, just starting out, you two as a person who's a director and actor, and you both are actors, you know, it's like coming together. Talk about the value. Is there a value in that?
I think there's tremendous value. This is my first time actually getting a chance to direct an original show that no one's done before. There's no blueprint. There's no pre-existing version of this show. Everything we're doing is brand new. And I had to say, I'm probably pretty spoiled getting a chance to work with Brian. He's been such a great collaborative partner. It does help that he and I are just personal friends over the years from working together on different projects. We just become friends in our personal lives. So having that was really helpful because, you know, we have a shorthand. We spent time together. We know how we talk and how we both seen each other work before. So we knew going in some of how the other person works, but it's still always, there's always something new when you actually start working on the thing. And it's just been the smoothest process in the world. I think we talked early on about our expectations, which is very important. I think just setting expectations I sat down with Brian and our entire production staff being like, okay, this is, you know, here's the hierarchy of how, you know, power is handled when we have questions, if we have concerns or, you know, different ideas running through. I just wanted to make sure, you know, nothing got in the way and no feelings got hurt and everything was just run professionally. Even in community theater, it's important to have professionalism in there. And working with Brian's just been a joy because it was the great balance of, if there are moments where I went to him like, oh, you know, now that I'm looking at the scene, here's the thoughts I'm having, and just sort of give not trying to tell him what to do, but just presenting with like, here's the issues I'm having watching the scene or this character arc, and him understanding, hearing what I'm saying and going off and finding the solution in the script. That's better than if I had just tried to pitch him on something like, oh, here, you should write this thing and do this. And instead of prescribing things to a show, he knows the show better than I'm ever going to. Despite, you know, as many months now as I've been studying the script and working on the songs, he's always going to know the characters, and he's lived in this world so much longer than I have. So it was just great to get that chance to be like, oh, here's what I see, here's what I'm thinking. And he would either come back with a perfect solution, or he would talk me through it and help me understand sort of if there's something I wasn't getting in the material. And it's really magic working on an original piece like this. I think it's easiest to see in our dance breaks, because going in to the show, there was no dance breaks written in, but we knew we wanted some. There are some songs that are designed for that. And it was such a gift to sit down with the playwright and the composer and the choreographer and go, okay, I think a dance break should go here. And Jenny, our choreographer, can go like, okay, well, I'm thinking about this long, this kind of feel for the music, and could help prescribe what we wanted and how so the music can be perfectly fit to what our choreographer envisioned for the dance breaks. Even late in the process, I was like, I really think this song needs a little 4-measure break here in between these lyrics, where we're going to do like a small dance piece. And 2 days later, Brian had just this amazing little piece of music that wasn't there before. And it's just such a gift to be able to do that. Normally, if I had licensed a show from one of the major companies, I would have the music, and maybe I could cut some things if I needed to shorten time, but I could never, you can't add things like that. You can't tweak things to that degree. I'm going to have a hard time going back to a show where I don't have a collaborative playwright sitting there who's willing to work with me and shape things how I want. Brian, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what it was like from your side. Maybe you might have some different insights as well.
I mean, I really enjoyed this process of, collaborating with Brandon. Like he said, it was, I think my mentality towards collaboration, and especially like as a playwright, I remember years and years ago reading a book that had like various interviews with theatrical creators, and they were talking to Lynn Ahrens, who wrote the lyrics for Ragtime, among many others. And she talked about when they were working on Ragtime, the producer would keep pressing, be like, oh, we should do this, and she basically sat him down and was like, tell me the problems, I'll figure out the solutions. Like as the writer knows how to, basically, if something's wrong, let me know, and then I can figure out how to solve the problem in a way that doesn't compromise the integrity of the piece. And Brandon has been amazing about coming to me. When he comes to me with a concern, I always make sure to listen. I would always start on the assumption that this is a legitimate complaint, and they always are. And so what you do is, there are times where I got notes from Brandon during the writing process where basically I was like, it's like, I see your note and I am choosing to disregard it. But most of the time, it's about seeing okay, the problem might not necessarily be, oh, so this song doesn't work. Well, is it because the song is because it's not a good song? Or is there something in the writing of the show that it needs to be adjusted for the song to land? And having that outside eye like Brandon is what really helps to hit those trouble spots where you realize the things that aren't working and how you can then adjust. And so the show doesn't have, a musical like this doesn't happen with one person alone.
Good point. Musicals are group activities. It's very hard because you have to have those components coming together. It's not a stage drama where the director is just me. I have to coordinate with the music director. I have to coordinate with the choreographer, the playwright. You said compromise the integrity. And that is one of the things that I think is why it's really nice when you can have the playwright right there with you, with the director. Because as playwrights, the words we choose are for a reason. And getting people to understand that sometimes is that but if you take that word out or you change that word, it changes the whole meaning of what I was trying to do and what I was trying to say. And so that's why it's so important that you do have that working together. And it's a blessing if you have the actual playwright. so that we, and I'm speaking as the playwright, that have been in that position too, and have not only been there, but are directing my play. So that's even worse, because I'm really struggling to make sure I don't compromise the integrity of this work based on trying to please actors or do this or that. So it's hard, but it can be done, as you guys have just pointed out. That it can be done, and it's beneficial, and it's really helpful when you can have it. Well, I'm really excited to see Second to Sherlock after hearing about all of the exciting work that has gone to bring it to life. Why don't you guys tell us, how do we get tickets, and where is it going to be held at?
Yeah, Second to Sherlock, you can see the world premiere of this musical at the Columbus Performing Arts Center. We are in the Van Fleet Theater, and the show runs from December 3rd through December 11th. If you want to get tickets, you can get them in advance online at imaginecolumbus.org. Just follow the ticket link on that website, and seating is general admission. You can also get tickets at the door.
Well, I want to thank you, Brandon and Brian, for being with me on Let's Talk Theater. I am so excited that you guys, especially you, Brian, because as a fellow playwright, I know how hard it is to finally get our work finished and then to get it produced. It's such an exciting thing. So I'm so happy and proud of you as a playwright that this Second to Sherlock is coming to life. And I can't wait, Brandon, to see your directorial skills. I'm sure once again. Thank you for being on Let's Talk Theater.
Thanks for having us. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining me, Julie Whitney Scott, your producer and host of Let's Talk Theater, a Mind for God production sponsored event, heard only on WGRN LP 94.1. For the full video interview, go to my Julie Whitney Scott Facebook page.